Good morning, Multicultural Art class. Today we are still in the country of Russia, and we will be exploring some artwork by a famous Russian artist whose name was Marc Chagall. His artwork is very colorful and dreamlike, so I think you'll have fun with this lesson. First, I want to tell you a little bit about the artist Marc Chagall, and then we will be doing a lesson that is a watercolor painting based on his work I and the Village. If you would like to pause this video now and get your art supplies ready, you could do so. So you will need a tray of watercolor paint, you will need a couple different sizes of brushes, and a piece of watercolor paper. And if possible, a hard surface that can be underneath your watercolor paper that you can tape it down with either painter's tape or masking tape. That way when you're painting, your watercolor paper won't get so wavy and warpy because it's held down by that tape. And you might remember that we've done that in the past in our class. So I'll let you pause the video here and then we will learn more about the life of Marc Chagall. You've got all your art supplies ready, and now we're going to learn about Marc Chagall. So Marc Chagall was born in the country of Belarus, and that is now, it was part of the Russian Empire, but it's actually its own country now, and it's called Belarus. So he was the oldest of 9 children. So he had a big family, and he was the oldest. So I'm guessing that he probably helped take care of his brothers and sisters a little bit too. And his father worked a really hard job in a herring factory. Herring is a type of fish, and so his father would get up every morning very early and he would go to his job at the factory and lift heavy barrels of herring, but he didn't make a lot of money, so his family wasn't super rich. And his mother also helped earn some money for the family by selling some of the herring and spices and other groceries out of a little shop in their house. So in those days, being Jewish meant that you were sometimes discriminated against, meaning that you couldn't do all of the things that other people could do in that country. So Marc Chagall's mom really wanted him to go to school, like a public school. He went to a private Jewish school at the beginning of his education because that's what most of the Jewish children did. But he really wanted to go to public school, so his mom tried to get him in. Now, unfortunately, they wouldn't let him in because he was Jewish. But his mom was really brave, and she insisted on meeting with the head of the school, and she gave him some money, probably a lot of money for their family, because they didn't have a lot of money. And it worked. They let him go to school. And that is the time that Marc Chagall had ever seen anybody make art, because he noticed one of his classmates drawing and it just amazed him. So I guess, I'm not sure why, but they didn't have a lot of art in their home. They didn't have paintings on the wall like I have here. They just didn't have a lot of decorations like that. So he had never even seen a painting, really experienced what art could be. And he asked the student, "How did you do that? How did you learn how to do that?" And the boy said, "Well, it's easy. You just go to the library and pick out a book and copy the pictures in the book." And so Marc Chagall did that, and he fell in love with art. So much so that he begged his mom to let him study at a local artist's studio in the town. And when she found out how poor he was and how young he was, she actually was very kind and gave him lessons for free. So that's how Marc Chagall got his start in the world of art. So Marc Chagall went on to study in Paris, France. He studied more art there, but he never forgot his family and his village that he grew up in. It was really important to him. So, and also his Jewish culture. So a lot of his work is kind of a mix of some of the Jewish folk stories and memories from his childhood in the village that he grew up in, and also dreams. So that was kind of a new thing for artists to be painting about their dreams. Not a lot of artists did that in Marc Chagall's time. And because he painted dreams, he didn't always follow the rules of normal art making. So, usually when we are painting realistic things, we talk about certain things that need to happen. Like there needs to be a flat surface, a horizon line, and things need to be standing on something. I usually say I don't want to see your art floating. Like if you have a person, they shouldn't be floating in the middle of the page. They should be standing on something. Well, Marc Chagall totally turned that upside down. He said, no, some of my buildings are going to be floating. Some of them are going to be upside down. Some of my people are going to look like they're flying. I'm going to have animals that look bigger than people and people that look bigger than houses. He did not follow the rules. So that makes it look even more dreamlike when you look at his paintings, because they don't look like real life. But you can still notice things from real life in his work. Kind of like our painter that we studied last semester, Salvador Dali. Remember, he did work we called surrealism. So Marc Chagall, he was painting a little bit before that time, but his work was really inspirational to some of the surrealist painters. So there's a quote by Marc Chagall about color, and he says, all the colors are friends of their neighbors and lovers of their opposites. So he was really interested in color and how different colors interacted with each other. And we've talked about that too. And you know that the neighbors, I call that, I didn't know he said this actually until I read it recently. And it made me happy because I call analogous colors on the color wheel neighbors. And complementary are opposite each other on the color wheel. So that would be their opposites. So Marc Chagall really loved color, and he used a very wide variety of color in his paintings. Like I said, he thought of them as neighbors and lovers. So his color wasn't exactly realistic, just like the way he put things on the page weren't very realistic. And another famous artist that you may have heard of, Pablo Picasso, he said something about Marc Chagall's paintings that was really interesting. He said, Chagall will be the only painter left who understands what color really is. So color is very important to Marc Chagall's work and understanding it. So now we are going to start our own painting based on I and the Village by Marc Chagall. I've got all my supplies ready, and I can't remember if I mentioned, but you'll also need a pencil for this project. So I've got my watercolor paper taped down. I've got my watercolors. I also have a paper towel here because you always need a paper towel when you're doing watercolor. And I have my cup of water ready to go. I have a variety of brushes as well. All right, so our first step to create our Marc Chagall Village is to create a big X on our paper. So we're going to start on one corner and we're going to go all the way down to the other one. So we should have two big triangles on our page. Now we're going to make it into an X by going from this corner all the way down to the other corner. So we've divided our whole page into 4 triangles with a big X on the page. Now in one of your triangles, I want you to draw a profile of a person. Now a profile is a side view of somebody. So when you're looking at somebody, I'm going to use my little bobblehead here as an example for you. This is a front view of Bob, right? This, let's get it in the frame here, is a profile view. Sorry, I'm doing it kind of, there we go. So this is a profile view of Bob. So you can see the edge of his head, his nose, there's his mouth and his chin. That's a profile view. So front view, profile view. So I want a profile view of a person on one of your triangles. So I'm going to make mine on this side. So I'm going to start with the forehead, and then here comes the nose. This is where the lips are. So I'm going to kind of go in and then come back out and in again. Here's the chin, and here is the jawline. When you draw an eye profile view, it's not going to be like this, how we would normally draw an eye. Unless you're Picasso, because he liked to draw them like that, even on a profile. But I want you to practice a profile eye. So what you start with is a sideways V shape, like that. And then, it's kind of like a sideways A actually, but instead of a cross on the A right here, we're going to do a round connecting of those two lines right there. That is the side of the eye. And then if we make a curve right there, that's our side of the iris. So you can see the eye is open. And this would be where your eyelashes are, on the top and on the bottom. And you would see, if you saw your eyebrow, I'm running out of room here a little bit, the eyebrow would kind of come up like that. Now I'm going to erase my forehead because I kind of made my forehead too small. And I want this person to have a little bit more of a forehead. I'm going to bring it up. There. It's okay if it goes off the page. It's okay if it's not exactly proportional, because remember, Marc Chagall painted dreams and visions and memories. So things didn't always look realistic. So that's okay. So now that we've got our profile person in one triangle, I want you to draw the profile of an animal in the other triangle. So if you remember, when we looked at the Marc Chagall painting that we're kind of basing this off of, there was a really large profile of a person, and he happened to be green. And then there was a really large profile of an animal kind of looking at him. So we're going to use that as our inspiration for ours. So you don't have to do the same kind of animal that Chagall did. Do something that's important to you, or maybe an animal that you've seen in your dreams. So think of a memory or maybe one of your pets, and you can draw a profile of that. I am going to draw my animal to be the profile of my dog. So I'm going to kind of map out where I want it. She has a long nose. I'm not going to worry too much about being realistic, because our artist didn't really worry about that either. More just about his memory. It's okay if it comes out a little bit from those X lines. My doggie has really big ears, so I want to really emphasize that in my picture of her. So here's my dog. Her name is Coda. Marc Chagall liked to use a lot of animals that would be in his village from back home, including cows and lambs and bulls. You see a lot of symbols of those animals in his work. So they're kind of looking at each other. So now we're going to draw what this person might be thinking or dreaming about in one of the triangles. And in the other triangle, we're going to draw what the animal might be thinking or dreaming about. So to make it more like Marc Chagall, I'm actually going to turn my whole paper this way. And I'm going to draw what the person is thinking or dreaming about upside down. I have to think about what this person is dreaming about. I think they're dreaming about their family right now. Especially the family that they can't see because of our quarantine. I think this must be me because I'm thinking about my family and I'm missing my parents because they live in North Dakota and they were going to come visit for Easter, but they can't now. So I finished drawing what I have the person thinking about. Now I'm going to be drawing what the animal is thinking about. You know, Dakota really loves this bone she has that's stuffed with stuff inside. And I think she thinks about it quite a lot. We also go to a dog park that she loves. And we haven't gone there quite as often as she would like. She loves to go there and run and run and run and run and run. Right. There's hiking through the trees. It's actually really pretty. You know, it's actually something that I like to do too. I like to bring her there and be out in nature. When I make trees like this, just a little technique lesson for you, I like to kind of start with a tree trunk and then I split it off like a Y, and then each of those little Ys I split off into more little Ys, getting smaller and smaller and smaller as they go up. So here, see, this is kind of a Y right here, and then this is another little Y, and then I'll split that one into another little Y, and this one into an even smaller little Y, and that one into an even smaller little Y. So if you're having a hard time drawing tree branches with no leaves on them, that's a really good way to start. Just to make Y's smaller and smaller and smaller branching off from it. And then you could come in and add more if it's looking a little bit blank or sparse. Just remember that they start thick and get thin. A lot of people draw a tree and they don't know where to go from the trunk. So then they just go like this and start doing thin branches right off of it. But that's not how a real tree looks. It doesn't stop at a point. So it's good to make those branches not so thin that are coming right off the tree. Once you are all satisfied with your drawing, you can start painting. Now I encourage you to use lots of colors because Chagall used lots of colors in his work. And I'm even going to copy Chagall a little bit and use green for my person. But other than that, I don't know how much I'll copy from Chagall. I kind of want to do my own thing. So I'm starting with watercolor. We always start by wetting our brush in our water. You swirl, you tap, and then you get some water into your watercolor palette. I'm going to put a little bit of water on my paper. A little bit of paint on my paper. Kind of following my profile lines that I made. But then I'm going to add just water and still tap it and use the paint that I already put on my paper and use the water I just put on my brush to spread it around. I finished my Chagall village painting and I just wanted to show you my final piece. You'll notice some similarities with Chagall in that I made my person green. I decided to make Coda orange because those are opposite on the color wheel. I have a color wheel right here to show you, so you can see they're kind of opposite each other on the color wheel there. almost. Like that. Red is technically opposite. And I just wanted to show you that I filled in some of the things. I made realistic colors, like some of the trees, and some of them I didn't. And that's okay, you get to decide what you do, but I want to see your whole painting filled with color, even the background. So I used that big X that we made at the beginning to kind of guide where I filled in different colors. So I used orange in the background of her, I used blue mostly in the background here, I used kind of a greenish yellow back here and a reddish purple back here. But I used those X lines to kind of guide where I started a new color, so you can still see those lines a little bit. But you can even erase the pencil lines because we don't need them anymore. Just use the paint to show those. All right, I can't wait to see what you guys come up with. These are going to be very interesting because they're all going to be so different because you all have different thoughts and dreams. All right. We'll see you later.